All right, let's take a look at how to change an improper fraction into a mixed number. So we've got a couple strategies we've been using throughout our whole fraction unit, and probably the simplest one is just making a picture of it. That's probably the easiest way to start with this. It's not the shortest way, but it is the easiest way. So if I wanted to draw a picture of the fraction 8/3, remember my denominator tells me how many pieces this is broken into. So I'm just going to draw pizzas, and I need to cut them into 3 pieces because of that denominator. So I'm going to try to make them as equal as I can. There we go, 3 pieces. Now my job with the numerator is to color in that number. So cut and color were kind of our 2 definitions. Cut it into 3 slices, color in 8. So when I go to color this in, 1, 2, there's more than one whole pizza that I need for this, or whatever you're making. So I'm going to need to draw another one because I've already used 3 of them and I need to color in 8. So I'm going to grab another one. I still cut it into thirds because of this denominator right here. That's the reason why I need to cut it into thirds. I'm still trying to color in 8 because of the numerator. So now I'm going to keep coloring in. I've colored in 3 over here so far. Here comes 4, 5, 6. 6, and I still haven't colored in my 8, so now I'm going to have to draw another one, still cutting it into 3 slices. And let's see, to make 8, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I need to color in 7 and 8. And now if you look at this, how many whole did I color in? Well, I colored in 2 whole, 1, 2, and how many remaining pieces are colored in this last section? There's 2 colored in out of 3, which gives you that mixed number. So I took that improper fraction and flipped it to a mixed number just by drawing pictures, paying attention to the denominator and the numerator. I'm going to show you another way here. Pictures, you can use, and that's a pretty simple, takes a little bit longer, but I can take that same 8/3 and use a different strategy called decomposing. And decomposing, we did that just before break, just breaking it down into pieces and pulling out what I would call the 1 whole from here. So 1 whole is an easy fraction, it's a landmark fraction, and to take a whole out of here, I would, if the denominator's 3, to make it exactly 1 whole, the numerator would have to be 3. We were kind of finding these patterns about fractions, how 1 whole, the numerator and denominator are the same. So I can pull 1 whole out, and that's 3/3, but I've got way more than 3. I've got 8/3 to look at. So I can actually pull another whole out. And now I've got 3/3 plus 3/3. Ooh, that's 6/3. I still have more I can take out, and there's 2/3 more to make up my total of 8/3. So when I go through and kind of look at putting these back together, I've got 3/3 plus 3/3 plus 2/3. Well, 3 plus 3 is 6, 7, 8. That makes my 8/3. And all I did was decompose this by pulling out whole fractions. And this one just happens to be what's left to make the 8. And when I look at this decomposed fractions, I can start counting up how many whole I brought out. I brought out 1, 2 whole, that would be my 2 whole, and 2/3 remaining. So 2 whole and 2/3, and all I did was decompose it. Very similar to the pictures, but I don't have to do the drawing. I'm just taking those pieces out. So just a slightly different strategy. You can use decomposing, another simple pull out the 1 whole, or I want to show you one more, and that's with division. If you remember when we started this, we looked at all the different ways you could make division signs, and we came up with division sign, and we came up with the division bar. Some people tried to use the multiplication, the inverse of multiplication to divide. There was tons of strategies, but what we had a hard time seeing was really this fraction bar really means division. This is a division problem. Fractions just break things down into smaller parts or divide them into smaller parts. So another way to write this same thing, this is really equal to 8 divided by 3. Now that's just a simple math board fact. Some of you are looking at that going, Mrs. Spate, 3 doesn't go into 8 evenly. It does go into 8. We're going to have some remainders here, and I'll show you what that looks like. So if I try to figure out how many times 3 goes into 8, I can skip count by 3s to figure out how many times it fits in there. So the first number is 3, then 6 if I'm skip counting by 3s, and that's 2 whole times that 3 goes into 8. It goes in there 2 whole times, but there's a remainder because really 6 divided by 3 is 2. It's not quite to 8. There's a remainder of 2. And when we did our division unit, you would have written R2. But now that it's a fraction unit, you actually make the 2 the numerator, and the 3 stays as the denominator. So 3 goes into 8 2 whole times. You have 2 more left over out of 3. So this improper fraction is really division, and you can flip it into a mixed number. So another strategy to look at. Let's look at that division strategy one more time. I want to do another division. Flip it into a division problem. And this one's probably the easiest one, especially if you know your facts. Hope that helps you out, guys. Problem here. So if I'm going to try, let's do 9/4. If I want to look at that as a division problem, which it is, there's tons of ways to look at it. Remember, we could draw pictures of it, we could decompose, but I want to use division. I could really flip that into 9 divided by 4. Now 4 doesn't go into 9 evenly, but it does go in there. So you can skip count, or if you know those math board facts, that's a great time to just rattle off the fact. 4 goes into 9. 4, 8. I said 2 numbers, so that's 2 whole times. 8 divided by 4 is really 2 whole, which means this is going to have a remainder or a leftover if you think back to our division unit. And 9 divided by 4 is 2, but there's 1 left over because really it's not 8 divided by 4, which is 2 whole, it's 9. That's 1 more, and here's my 1 more left over. And the denominator is super easy. It always stays the same. See how the denominator's 4 here? The divisor, the denominator, they're the same thing. So 9/4 as an improper fraction is really 2 1/4. Let's take another look at that division. And we'll go with a bigger number here. Let's look at 16/5. Right? Really, that's 16 divided by 5. And if I want to skip count by 5s, how many times does 5 go into 16? Whole times without going over. 5, 10, 15. Ooh, I just said 3 numbers. And that's 15 divided by 5 is really 3. And you can see I have 1 more left over because I had 16s, 1 more. The leftover becomes my numerator, and the denominator is the easiest. It stays the same. Remember, denominator, divisor, same thing. So 16/5 is really 3 1/5. Hopefully that gives you a better idea on how to take those improper fractions and switch them to a mixed number. You can use